Listen up, everyone. Have you ever witnessed an act so outrageous it made your blood boil? Imagine this: a friendly diner on a Sunday morning, a routine breakfast that should have been filled with laughter and scrambled eggs. Instead, it becomes the stage for a shocking act of racism when a local cop decides to harass a kind, gentle black woman only to realize her husband holds a position that could flip his entire world upside down. This isn't just about one cop, it's about prejudice, power, and the unexpected ways life delivers justice. Ready for a tale of epic consequences? The neon sign of Cracker Barrel blinked tirelessly against the humid Alabama air. Even though it was only 8 in the morning, the sun was already scorching, promising a blistering day ahead. Families streamed in, eager for pancakes and hash browns. Waitresses zipped by with pots of fresh coffee, and a faint tune of old country music crackled from speakers hidden somewhere near the entrance. It was a classic southern scene, calm, inviting, full of small-town warmth, or so it seemed on the surface. On this particular morning, a young black woman named Tamara Beckford sat alone at a corner table. She was flipping through pictures on her phone, a tender smile lighting up her face whenever she paused at a photograph of her baby daughter. Tamara's husband, Matthew, was running late, caught up with some urgent phone calls outside. They were traveling back from a conference, and Cracker Barrel was the closest spot they could find for a hearty breakfast before hitting the road again. Tamara wore a simple white sundress that contrasted beautifully with her ebony skin. She had a soft demeanor, the kind that invited friendly conversation. She was in her late 20s, with an air of gentle confidence about her. Between sips of her coffee, she tapped her foot to the country tune overhead, appearing unperturbed at peace, even despite having a long drive ahead. Little did she know her life was about to clash violently with a bigoted force she'd hoped to never meet in this day and age. At another table sat Officer Paul Durham. At 45, he was a veteran of the local police department, a department that had seen better days. A short, stocky man with a perpetual scowl, Durham had a reputation for being overzealous with traffic stops, especially when it came to people of color. Though he was off duty today, his uniform shirt unbuttoned at the collar and badge clipped to his belt served as a constant reminder of his authority. He pored over the local newspaper, half-eaten biscuits and gravy in front of him. Every so often, Officer Durham's eyes flickered toward Tamara. Maybe it was the casual way she was dressed, or maybe her confident posture rubbed him the wrong way, or maybe he simply despised seeing a black person enjoying a peaceful moment. Whatever it was, something about Tamara bugged him enough that he kept glancing in her direction until those glances became glares. Eventually, Tamara set down her phone to wave her waitress over for a refill. The waitress arrived, poured fresh coffee, and asked if she wanted to order. Just at that moment, Tamara's phone buzzed. She excused herself politely, stepping away from the table to answer the call. Officer Durham, alert to her every move, crinkled his brow and leaned slightly forward, as though a criminal conspiracy might be unfolding at any second. By the time Tamara returned, her cheeks were slightly flushed from the summer heat. She sat back down, reached for her coffee, and nearly jumped when she saw a figure looming next to her booth. "Can I help you?" she asked, in a calm, steady voice, looking up at Officer Durham. He let out a sharp exhale. "You here alone, ma'am?" The word ma'am came out with a dryness that suggested little respect. "I'm waiting for my husband," she replied. "We're on our way home. Is there a problem, officer?" Durham shrugged, affecting a casual air that did nothing to mask his suspicion. "No problem if everything's in order," he said. "Mind if I see some ID?" His question echoed with a silent hush that settled over nearby tables. People shot curious glances from behind their newspapers and coffee cups. A tense hush was closing in. "ID?" Tamara repeated, confused. "Why would I need to show you my ID? I haven't done anything illegal. Durham puffed up his chest. I'm just being cautious. You fit the description of someone I'm looking for. The waitress, a middle-aged woman named Sherry, stepped forward, worry creasing her forehead. Is there something wrong, officer? She asked timidly. He ignored Sherry and pinned Tamara with his gaze. Well, Tamara felt her heart sink, but her voice remained controlled. Officer, I'm not sure what you're talking about. I've never had any trouble with the law. I'm simply waiting for my husband to join me for breakfast. Criminals always have a story, he scoffed. Sherry attempted to diffuse the tension. Officer, we see a lot of people in here, but she's a paying customer. She hasn't caused any trouble. Durham cut her off with a glare. Monsieur A.M., let me handle this. Tamara felt a flush of anger at the unwarranted accusation, but she also felt fear of what might happen if she refused. The uniform, the badge, the power he held in a world that wasn't always kind to people who looked like her. Reluctantly, she reached for her purse. I have my driver's license with me, she said, trying to remain polite. Just then, the diner's front door swung open. In walked Matthew Beckford, tall, with an athletic frame, dressed in neatly pressed khaki slacks and a light blue shirt. He spotted his wife from across the room, noticing the tension in her shoulders and the police officer looming above her. Concern etched into his features, and he hurried forward. What's going on here? Matthew asked, placing a reassuring hand on Tamara's shoulder. Durham turned to size him up. Who are you? I'm her husband, Matthew said. Is there a problem, officer? I'm asking the questions here, Durham snapped. She fits the description of someone suspicious. Matthew's gaze shifted from the officer to his wife, registering shock and anger. Suspicious? For what? She's sitting here drinking coffee. For goodness sake. In a condescending tone, Durham said, Sir, step aside. I'm in the middle of checking her ID. Matthew leaned in, dropping his voice. Officer, I think you're making a mistake. My wife is a law-abiding citizen. She's a loving mother and a respected professional. There's no reason for this. Tamara, exhausted by the tension, quietly handed over her ID. Durham snatched it, eyes flicking to the details. Tamara Beckford, he read aloud, as if the name itself was incriminating. He studied the license photo as though searching for signs of forgery, then handed it back abruptly. He glared at Tamara and then at Matthew. I'll be back, he warned, stepping away from the booth as if expecting them to vanish into thin air. He stomped toward the restroom, presumably to run her name through some database on his phone or simply to nurse his inflated ego. A wave of relief washed over Tamara as she exhaled. The surrounding patrons were buzzing with awkward confusion, some outraged, others too timid to intervene. Sherry, the waitress, leaned in. I'm so sorry, she whispered. This is just unbelievable. Matthew nodded stiffly. We've dealt with worse, but not in a place as public as this, he admitted, voice tight. He turned to his wife, his tone gentle. You okay? She nodded. I'm fine. But he's going to come back. This doesn't feel over. Matthew gave her hand a reassuring squeeze. Let's see what he tries next. No more than 5 minutes passed before Durham returned. He stood at their table, posture rigid, eyes flicking with a triumphant spark. Miss Beckford, step outside with me. Tamara frowned, her shoulders tensing. Why? She asked. What did you find that calls for this? Durham smirked. We have a situation. I need more information. Matthew stood. If you have to talk to my wife, I'm coming along. Durham glared but didn't outright refuse. Outside, the Alabama sun was punishing. The parking lot was half full, with a few onlookers craning their necks through the diner windows. A hush of suspicion and fear fell over Tamara and Matthew as they stepped into the harsh sunlight. Durham gestured for them to follow him behind the diner, near the dumpsters, an isolated spot that made Tamara's stomach churn. You have no right to keep harassing her, Matthew said, maintaining a thin hold on his temper. What's your problem anyway? Tamara asked, her voice cracking with the first signs of anger. "I have no criminal record. I haven't done anything wrong. Are you really treating me like a suspect because of the color of my skin?" Durham wore a smug grin. "I don't have to explain myself. I'm the law here." Matthew took a step forward. He was furious, but also careful, well aware of the potential danger in challenging a cop, especially a racist one. He glanced around, noticing security cameras on the backside of the building. A single red light blinked, indicating it was recording. He locked eyes with Durham, a new determination filling him. "Officer, you might want to consider your words carefully," Matthew said. "We're both hard-working citizens. We pay our taxes, we follow the law, and we have every right to enjoy breakfast without being harassed." Durham laughed derisively. "Is that right? Tell me, what do you do for a living, hotshot?" "You a used car salesman, a street hustler?" Matthew paused, lips curling into a tight smile that didn't reach his eyes. "No, officer, I'm a judge. Specifically, a federal magistrate judge." For a moment, time froze. The smug confidence in Durham's face flickered. It was as if someone had doused his fire with a bucket of ice water. A federal judge. That meant connections, power, influence. It meant that every single step Durham had taken could be dissected under a legal microscope. "You're what?" he stammered, his voice faltering. Matthew folded his arms. "You heard me. I preside over federal cases, including ones that involve police misconduct." Tamara watched the scene with a blend of relief and trembling anger. She rarely flaunted her husband's occupation, but today the knowledge that he carried genuine weight in the justice system felt like a shield against tyranny. Durham struggled to regain composure. "Well, he glanced at Tamara. "I just needed to verify her identity. You know how things are these days." Didn't mean any offense. Matthew's eyes blazed with anger. "Officer, you harassed my wife without probable cause. You publicly humiliated her, made her feel unsafe in a public establishment, and demanded her ID on shaky pretenses. That's a clear abuse of power. And now I'm asking you, are we free to go?" A war of emotions raged across Durham's features. He cleared his throat. "Of course," he managed stiffly. "You two, go enjoy your breakfast." Matthew and Tamara didn't dignify him with another word. They turned and walked back into the diner. Inside, Sherry rushed over to them, fear plain in her eyes. "Is everything all right?" she asked, glancing behind them. When Tamara nodded, Sherry pulled a shaky smile. "I'm so sorry for all of this." Tamara thanked her softly, and the couple returned to their booth. The dining area buzzed with uneasy energy, but most of the patrons tried to look away, ashamed to have witnessed injustice yet not acted on it. The couple decided to proceed with their meal. Perhaps normalcy, a good breakfast shared between husband and wife, would help them regain some sense of dignity after the humiliating confrontation. Yet, the day's twists were far from over. Unbeknownst to them, Durham lingered in the parking lot, fuming. He'd just found out that the woman he targeted was married to a federal judge. His stomach churned with dread over potential blowback. Instead of quietly leaving, though, his arrogance got the better of him. He decided he would find a way to justify his behavior. Within a few minutes, he got into his patrol car, still wearing his uniform, despite claiming to be off-duty, turned on the engine, and radioed his friend inside the station, hoping to conjure up a plausible reason for having detained Tamara. When the friend on the other end of the line hesitated, fearing that this request might border on fabricating evidence, Durham became enraged. He spat curses, threatened retribution, and eventually slammed the radio, leaving the station contacts speechless. Inside the diner, Matthew and Tamara tried to enjoy their breakfast, but the tension was tangible. Tamara's hands shook slightly as she tried to hold her coffee cup. Matthew kept glancing at the window, half expecting Durham to barge in again with some new pretext. A phone rang, cutting through the diner's background chatter. Matthew picked up his cell. It was a number he recognized, his courtroom clerk. Judge Beckford, the voice on the other end said, "Cautious, we just received an odd message. Someone claiming to be Officer Paul Durham from Montgomery County says he's looking for information about your wife's legal history." Matthew felt a pulse of fury. "Did you give him anything?" he asked, careful to keep his voice low so as not to alarm Tamara further. "Absolutely not," the clerk replied. "It's all sealed or private, but I wanted you to know he called." Matthew thanked them and ended the call. He exhaled, trying to maintain composure. This wasn't just prejudice in the heat of the moment. Durham was now actively attempting to dig up dirt to justify his hateful conduct. If that wasn't a sign that the officer was guilty of misconduct, Matthew didn't know what was. Tamara saw the storm in her husband's eyes. "What happened?" he explained quietly, and Tamara's expression darkened. "This man won't stop. He's only making his situation worse," Matthew said, taking a moment to consider his next move. If he thinks he can fabricate some excuse, he's grossly underestimating what the federal bench can do, or what the law can do when it's on our side. They finished their meal in a pensive silence. Outside, they noticed that Officer Durham's patrol car was still parked, this time near the curb, almost as if he were lying in wait. Matthew decided to make a careful exit. He asked the diner manager if there was a back door they could use to leave unseen. The manager nodded sympathetically, guiding them through the kitchen, around the crates of produce and the sizzling grills, and out a side exit into an alley. Once outside, Matthew and Tamara walked around the block to their own car, which was parked on the opposite side. They started the engine and pulled onto the road. Moments later, they noticed the flashing blue and red lights in their rear-view mirror. "What now?" Tamara muttered, anxiety clenching her stomach. "He's following us." Matthew's lips pressed into a thin line. "Let's stay calm." They pulled over. Sure enough, Officer Durham approached the car, hand resting on his holster like a threat. Matthew rolled down the window. "Step out of the vehicle," Durham demanded. "Both of you." Matthew's jaw clenched. "On what grounds?" "You have a broken tail light," Durham said, with feigned authority. Matthew looked at the reflection of their car in the diner's large windows. All lights were intact. "That's a lie, officer." Durham's composure cracked. "You disrespecting me," he snarled. "Get out of the car." What could they do? Refusing risked escalation. With caution, they both exited the car, keeping their hands visible. Tamara felt her chest tighten as she recalled horrifying stories of simple traffic stops turned deadly. Durham circled the vehicle, pretending to examine the rear lights. He feigned a triumphant grunt, then returned to face them. "That's what I thought," he muttered. "Now I'm going to." Suddenly, another set of flashing lights appeared behind Durham's squad car. A second patrol car pulled up, and out stepped Sergeant Lisa Monroe, the shift supervisor. A no-nonsense expression hardened her features. "Officer Durham," she said, voice echoing with authority. "What's going on here?" Durham turned, startled. "Sarge, I'm just making a routine stop. These folks have a busted tail light." Without a word, Monroe walked over and examined the Beckfords' car. She tapped the tail light with her knuckles, verifying that it was fully intact and functional. She turned to Durham, eyes flashing with anger. "This is in perfect condition," she stated firmly. Then she directed her attention to Tamara and Matthew. "I received a call from dispatch about possible harassment. May I ask if this officer has been detaining you?" Matthew, relieved to see someone else in uniform who might be reasonable, nodded. "He has. Multiple times. My wife and I have done nothing wrong. We were just trying to leave the diner." Durham's face flushed. "Sarge, that's not the whole story." Monroe held up a hand. "Officer, step aside." He tried to protest, but she fixed him with a glare that brooked no argument. Durham fumed silently, stepping a few paces away. "I'm very sorry." Monroe said to the Beckfords. I need you to know we take allegations of harassment very seriously, especially if there's any racial profiling involved. Matthew nodded. We appreciate that, Sergeant. But this has gone beyond allegations. He's been harassing my wife inside the diner, and now out here on the road, without probable cause. Tamara added quietly. He demanded my ID for no reason, treated me like a criminal. Monroe's jaw tightened. She glanced at their license plate, reading the registration sticker. Judge Beckford, correct? Matthew's eyes widened. Yes, that's right. Monroe nodded, her expression a mixture of respect and regret. I've heard of your work, and I'm sorry, I truly am. You realize I can't just let this slide, Matthew said softly. He's shown a pattern of misconduct. Monroe met his gaze with a directness that spoke of duty. I understand. I would never ask you to drop something like this. I'll be filing a full report on my end. Please, let me know if there's any way we can make sure justice is served. From behind Monroe, Durham muttered curses under his breath. He was too far gone in his arrogance and hatred to realize he had run out of rope. Every ounce of bravado he'd carried minutes before was now channeled into quiet, seething frustration. Monroe turned to him. Officer Durham, I need you to relinquish your badge and your service weapon right now. You're going on administrative leave pending investigation. He gaped at her, color draining from his face. You can't do that, Sarge. I can and I will, she said firmly. You've left me no choice. Hand them over. Durham's trembling hands reached for his badge and sidearm. He hesitated, then shoved them at her, face twisted in fury. This is ridiculous. No, Monroe responded. It's protocol when an officer is suspected of misconduct. She slipped both items into a lockbox in her patrol car. Then she signaled for him to get in the passenger side. We'll be heading back to the station. We have a lot to talk about. Durham climbed into the squad car like a cornered animal, eyes brimming with bitterness. Sergeant Monroe turned back to the Beckfords. I'd like your statement, if you wouldn't mind. Matthew glanced at Tamara, who nodded in agreement. We'll come down to the station. Right now, we'd like to get on the road, but we'll give a full, detailed statement as soon as we can. My clerk will be in touch as well. Monroe nodded respectfully. That'll be fine. If you want to file a formal complaint, I'll make sure everything is documented. Once again, I'm sorry. She drove off, leaving the Beckfords standing in stunned silence on the side of the road. Cars whizzed by, oblivious to the drama that had just unfolded. Tamara's shoulders sank in relief as she reached for her husband's hand. You okay? Matthew asked gently, stroking her palm. I'm still shaken, she admitted, but I'm so grateful we're both safe. Matthew squeezed her hand. Racism in a uniform. Exactly what we fight against in the courtroom. We'll make sure he doesn't get to do this to anyone else. They got back into their car and resumed their journey. The adrenaline of the morning was still running high in their veins, but they allowed themselves small smiles of relief, grateful that justice, at least in part, seemed to be on their side. 2 weeks later, Tamara and Matthew had returned to their routine in Atlanta, where Matthew presided over cases at the federal courthouse. Tamara split her time between caring for their daughter and preparing educational materials for a local non-profit. Life had settled into its familiar rhythms, yet the memory of that Alabama diner confrontation remained fresh. One afternoon, the phone rang in Matthew's office. It was Sergeant Monroe. Judge Beckford, I wanted to update you. We've concluded our internal investigation and Officer Durham's been terminated. The footage from the diner's security camera, along with statements from the waitress and other witnesses, confirmed he engaged in racial profiling. Matthew nodded gravely, though he felt a measure of relief. Thank you, Sergeant. That's a step in the right direction. Monroe hesitated. There's more. We also discovered he'd falsified reports in other cases. He's facing possible criminal charges. He might even do time if the district attorney decides to pursue it. Karma, it seemed, had indeed come knocking. For years, Durham had likely harassed and manipulated others, confident his badge would shield him from repercussions. But this time, he had harassed the wife of a federal judge, someone who wouldn't back down. After hanging up with Monroe, Matthew found Tamara in the kitchen. She was fixing a snack for their daughter. He gently informed her of the update. She breathed out a long sigh. "I'm relieved, and I'm thinking of all the people he might have hurt before this. I'm glad it's over for us, but it makes me sad for those who didn't have the resources or the chance to fight back." Matthew nodded. "We'll keep pushing for reforms, Tamara. In my courtroom and in every opportunity we get. Life has a funny way of looping back around." One day, Tamara visited a local women's shelter to deliver some supplies. As she was packing up her car, she noticed a figure sitting on a bench near the entrance. A man, hunched over, shoulders trembling. As she approached, recognition dawned. It was Paul Durham, former officer, disheveled, eyes reddened with fatigue and shame. He looked up, startled to see her. Immediately he recoiled, as though expecting an onslaught of well-deserved anger. Tamara tensed, her first instinct to walk away. But then she remembered her own sense of morality, a sense that overshadowed bitterness. "Miss S. Beckford," he stammered. Look, I know you probably hate me." Tamara regarded him quietly, her heart pounding. "I don't hate you," she said slowly. "I hate what you did." He nodded, tears glossing his eyes. "I lost everything, my job, my pension. No one will hire me. My wife left me. His voice broke. "I know I did wrong, and now I'm paying for it." Part of her wanted to turn around and leave. Another part of her felt pity. She was keenly aware that her choice in that moment might be a reflection of the very values she hoped society would uphold: fairness, compassion, and justice. "Why are you here?" she asked quietly, eyeing the women's shelter behind him. He swallowed. "They serve free meals sometimes, and I ended up living in my car after losing my house. Then my car broke down. I don't know what else to do." Her mind flashed to that hot morning outside Cracker Barrel, the sneer on his face, the arrogance in his posture. Now he was reduced to a broken man, undone by his own wrongdoing. Perhaps that was the definition of karma, unstoppable consequences that eventually caught up with him. She sighed. "I can't fix this for you," she said. "You made choices. You hurt people." He nodded slowly, tears breaking free. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I truly am." Tamara studied him, weighing her words carefully. "Then I hope you let this regret change you. I hope you remember how it felt to wield your power unfairly, and I hope you'll never do it again." He nodded, shoulders shaking. "I wish I could take it back." She hesitated, then placed a few bills from her wallet into his hand, enough for a meal. "I'm not excusing what you did," she said, voice trembling slightly. "But my faith teaches me compassion. Just make better choices if you ever get the chance." Durham's tear-filled eyes met hers. He mumbled a thank you, the words laden with disbelief that she would help him at all. Tamara turned and left, her heart conflicted. She harbored no illusions that she could change him, or that any amount of compassion would erase what he'd done. But she walked away believing that showing a modicum of empathy did not contradict the justice they had sought. It was an offering of humanity to someone who had once denied her the same courtesy. For the rest of her life, Tamara would remember that encounter as a strange, bittersweet epilogue to the day a racist cop harassed her at a diner. She'd experienced fear, anger, and humiliation, only to witness the system, for once, move in the right direction, and in the end, she saw her harasser brought low, begging for mercy. It was a powerful lesson in how life sometimes delivers punishment in unexpected ways, and how compassion can still find room to breathe, even amid the wreckage. In every official capacity, Tamara and Matthew ensured that Durham's case was used as a teaching moment, training sessions at the police academy, panel discussions on racial profiling, and even a few lines in the local newspaper about accountability in law enforcement. But Tamara's final memory of him wasn't in a courthouse or behind bars. It was at that battered bench outside a women's shelter, where a broken man clung to the mercy of strangers, proof that prejudice, cruelty, and abuse of power can lead to one's own downfall. And so, life went on. Tamara and Matthew continued their path, raising their daughter with values of empathy and resilience. They never forgot how one chance encounter in a diner exposed the ugly underbelly of racism, but also reaffirmed that truth and justice, while often delayed, can still come crashing down like a tide. In the end, there's always a price to pay for those who misuse their power. Sometimes the bill just takes a little time to arrive. And there you have it, a stark reminder that hate and prejudice can lurk where we least expect them, even in the simple act of grabbing breakfast at a diner. Yet this story shows that when we stand up, united and unwavering, justice has a chance to win. Officer Durham learned the hard way that abusing authority comes with a steep price. Tamara's courage and Matthew's firm dedication to the law left an imprint that rippled beyond their own lives, possibly helping countless other victims of similar harassment. If this tale moved you, if it made you think, or if you're simply rooting for more stories where justice prevails, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Your support helps us bring more eye-opening stories to light and fosters a community where respect and fairness rule the day. Thank you for watching, and stay vigilant out there.